it's Allie, and welcome to December Daily for day 4. Also a big welcome to any of you who may be joining from the Documented Life Project. I am doing my page today in conjunction with a prompt that they have available over there, and you can see the links on my blog for more information on that. Right now you're looking at my foundation pages from how I put the album together. Originally I've got a card for day 4, a 3x4 "Aw Yeah" card, room for some 4x6 something, and then a full page 6x8 over here. Now, as I decided the story that I was going to tell today, I was definitely inspired by the Documented Life project that I was given, which is talking about how life is a book and, how do we fill the pages of that book. It was that in conjunction with words being front and center. And so as most of you guys know who have followed me or participated in workshops or blog or anything for however many number of years now, words are super important to me. And so I loved that prompt in general and specifically as well. And so it actually inspired me to go out and get some other decor that I wanted for the holidays, which was some greenery to have on my front porch. So I set up my camera out on the front porch. I took pictures of myself setting it up. My kids are with Chris this weekend. So I was making magic happen for myself, and that really became the theme of my story today. And I used that the Documented Life prompt as a jumping off point for that. So let me show you what I have so far. People that do the Documented Life project, it's a lot more art journaling, and so if you're used to seeing that from that project, this is going to be a little bit less art journaling because I'm doing it in my own style, and this is kind of what you get when you come here too, and for this memory keeping project as well. So I went ahead, a couple things. The first thing is I printed out a large photo, and so this is a photo of myself working on putting up the greenery around the porch. And I set up my camera, self-timer, on a chair, brought a little chair out there and set it up, and then just took some pictures of myself doing this. Number 1, getting myself in the story. Number 2, making magic happen for myself. So I have that picture, and then in addition to that, I also took a picture of myself, so a face shot. So I'm going to use this picture also, which was after I was done doing this, and then I stood in the door and I held the camera out in front of me and I just took a picture of myself because I really was feeling truly happy and really focusing this idea of, that we create our own happiness and that we make magic for ourselves. And so then I thought about what do I want to write about this? And so what I decided to do was take a piece of vellum, and using letter stamps, I stamped something on there. And what it says is, write this on your heart. I can make my own magic. We don't always get to pick the story, but we get to pick how we respond. So this is a lifelong lesson for me. It's something that I'm always working on, about attitude and how we respond to certain situations in our life. And I think that this is a lovely message to include in this project that's related to the season, as well as being something that I would love for my kids to read later on, and as well as being just a really nice message for myself. So let's talk about how I'm making this happen. Like I said, what I did is I printed out this enlarged photo, and the way that I figured out the size is I just took my my page protector and I measured it using my ruler, and then I resized my photo in Photoshop to being that size. So you want to just measure your own page protector to make sure that you're getting the correct size. And you can see mine's a little bit bigger, so I still need to trim it off. So what I'm going to be doing is actually not using this page at all. I may use it another time in the album. I'm just going to pull it out, and this is going to become a page in and of itself. So similar to what you saw a couple days ago when I did the page that was outside of the page protectors, this one here that was back to back. This is what I'm going to do something similar, but it's going to be the full page of a photo. Okay, so that's going to go in there. Then on top of that image, let's see, a couple things are going to happen. Don't get too excited about that next thing. That's for tomorrow. the next thing that's going to happen is this then is going to become also a page on top here, and it will turn in the album. So I'll be punching holes. We're going to put this photo over in the 4x6 section. And then I also have this die cut that I hand wrote and cut with a silhouette, and it says Making Spirits Bright. And I think I'm going to adhere this directly onto the photo of me doing that. So the idea that I'm making spirits bright for myself. This was a die cut that was included in the Storytelling with December daily class. So if you were in that class, you have that both as word art and as a cut file. So I want to show you, before I get into just kind of constructing that, I want to just talk a little bit about vellum. And what I used for this. So for this portion, I used this stamp set that I have had forever. I don't even know how long I've had it. I've used it in many projects, many past December dailies. It's from a company called Educational Insights. It's See and Stamp. I'll link it for you in the supplies. They are just these plastic stamps. I love the bold sans serif font. Used them over and over again. They're like one of my favorite things probably that I've used. The vellum that I used a sheet that was 12 by 12, and again I cut it down to the size of the page protector. And last night I went ahead and stamped using StazOn onto the vellum using those letter stamps. And I did it last night so that it would have enough time to dry. I wanted to make sure that it had enough time to get completely dry before I put it in my album. A couple of questions that I think will probably come up. People will wonder, did I know exactly what I was going to say? No, I didn't. And I did have to adjust a little bit. Like probably instead of pick, if I was doing it again, I would have wanted to use the word choose, but I was running out of space. And so I went with the word pick instead. I probably also would have say, we don't always get to pick the story we're in, but we get to pick how we respond or choose how we respond. Probably would have done that, but this is fine. It gets the same point across. I did not draw lines. I didn't use a ruler. The table that I have here that I work on from IKEA has lines in the grain of wood, and with the vellum I could kind of see that a little bit. But I also, do this kind of stuff so regularly that I'm pretty straight with my lines, but even if it wasn't straight, I would be totally fine with that as well. So you could totally, there's lots of different ways that you could approach that, but I just wanted to show you, this is simple stamping. It's not complicated. Not a complicated technique here, just using the StazOn, and I'll just do a couple things here for you. So you're basically just pushing down and then making sure you let it dry is the main thing. But you could use any kinds of letter stamps that you had at home. Vellum, you could actually, with this vellum, you can get inkjet vellum that you can print on. So instead of stamping it, you could just print some message or sentiment on there as well. Lots of different options for working with a sheet of vellum. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go through the process here just of trimming down my pages, punching the holes, getting them in the album, and then we'll talk about that again in a minute. Okay, for this part of the process, what you're going to see is just how I went about, I'm trimming the photo. I use an Epson R2000 photo printer for enlargements that are bigger than 5x7. For all my smaller pictures, 5x7 and smaller, now I'm using a new Epson PictureMate PM400 that I've had probably for about a month now, and it's been working great. Prior to this, I had the Epson PictureMate Show, which just recently died. I loved that printer. I worked it to death. I bought multiple of them, and then this is the new version of that, so I'm working with that. As you can see there, I was just trimming the edges and making sure I had everything all lined up, and I am using a crocodile to punch the holes through the photo and the vellum to be able to go into the album. Now, one of the things that I noticed putting it in the album, and you'll probably see this here in a second, is that it's pretty tight right now. Tight in terms of the way that it turns with the rings. And it's just something to, I think, be conscious of, to be aware of. What I have always found when that sort of thing occurs is that over time it gets easier. partly just via the process of people looking at the album or your kids looking at it, or, the pages getting turned, they loosen up a little bit. On the Vellum, it's kind of a different thing. I may end up reinforcing it. I've had other pieces of Vellum in there before that ended up working fine, but it's something to pay attention to and watch out for. I love adding in the full page things like this, though. Like, I'm super happy with the way that turned out, but you can see just, being careful as you're moving it over the rings and those kinds of things that can catch on there. Next up was actually adhering that silhouette cut, the one that says Making Spirits Bright. And I do a couple different things for that. In this case, I'm going to be using the Martha Stewart glue pen, which has worked fine. You can also do spray adhesive on these. That definitely makes them sticky. You can also staple them on there, maybe using Tim Holtz tiny attacher. You could paper clip them on depending where you're putting them. I've found that the glue pen works fine. Sometimes I do need to staple them on there, but in this case, I just kind of tried to get it around. You can see that I'm not being too specific. You can not put it on some spots and it'll be fine, but this is a pretty delicate cut. It's thinner than some of the things that I've done in the past, and I love how it looks, but you do need to be careful with it as you're working with it. Another thing that comes up when people see this is they can't believe that, it's kind of like the photos with the glue and all the other things and me fingerprints all over it. It's not anything that I worry about, think about. I want people to look and touch and put their fingers on it. That means that it's, being loved and that I love it and that I'm looking at it and those kinds of things too. So I don't really think too much about that part of it. Another thing I wanted to add on there were these cute little stars from the Jasmine Jones mini kit this year, and I just used those as the dots on the eye. I skipped the second eye in Spirit just because the part of the T went right over that. So I put 3 little stars on there. And then over on the other side, what I ended up doing, pulling out the journal card there to write just a little bit of additional journaling. If you are new to this project, just via this video, for me in this project, I like to do a combination of different kinds of journaling on different days. So some days it's really long journaling, some days it's really short. This is one, it kind of has a combination where the journaling, I'm responding to the prompt, so I'm going big with the type, and then just writing a little bit of details about what happened. Also, what you just saw there is I am embossing with the gold tinsel from Tim Holtz. Again, that's what I've been using a lot in this album. I used a rolling date stamp, Versamark for the ink, and I am just heat embossing that on there. I like adding in that little bit of gold that goes along with the other little star accents that I have across the story today. For the pen, I am using a Uniball precision pen. It is not an archival pen. It's not a specialty scrapbooking pen. It's just my favorite pen for writing in general. Non-scrapbook related. Often I use precision pens for this, and I just didn't grab one when I was doing it. So I know some people would be like, oh my gosh, how can you do that? And other people don't care. So, everybody gets to make their own choices. I just love the feel of this pen in my hand. I am writing stream of conscious journaling on here, talking about how, kind of just reiterating the story of being able to go and buy the boughs and how it made me feel happy and festive and how I was creating magic for myself through the process of doing that and really allowing myself to be open to finding the joy and to choosing the joy during this season this year. Okay, so I also wanted to add something on to the photo of myself. And I know for lots of people taking pictures of themselves is challenging or hard or there's all kinds of issues surrounding it. I think one thing that I have learned over these many years of including stories about myself and photos of myself is that I really appreciate seeing the progression in my life, like literally seeing it. So to be, I see myself in the story. My kids get to see myself in the story. I get to see my own growth and evolution on my face. Then that means a lot more than just the physical lines and wrinkles and those sorts of things. But I think being able to capture yourself and take lots of them. You know, I think I took 4 or 5 here. You could take a lot more too, just depending on what you're doing. But I felt good, and I wanted to capture what that felt like in that moment, because it's just like everybody else, I don't always feel good. So I think it's nice to, when you do feel good, to get a picture of yourself. And I really, you know, I'm focusing on trying to make that happen. So I'm gonna take, this is another one of the little die cuts from the silhouette, or that I cut with the silhouette that came with the storytelling class. I want to stamp something above there. The storytelling class came with a stamp set too, and I was thinking about doing the reason why, and then I looked through my past story stamps. So I have a story stamp subscription that comes with education each month and process videos, just like what you're seeing right now. There's a kit option and there's a stamp option. One of the themes that we did this year was roots, and, you know, talking about family history and those sorts of things. And so as I was looking back through the products, I was looking for something that was less the reason why and more kind of in progress, right? In progress of finding joy, in progress of making my own magic, you know, those kinds of sentiments. And so on the roots one, I found one that said finding my way. And so I think that is the one that I'm gonna end up using on here. Finding my way and then having joy right below it, I think, is a nice sentiment, a nice seasonal sentiment to put on here as well. And I'm going to be stamping onto my photo using Stays On. I'm going to just kind of double check my placement here. I haven't adhered the joy part down, and I kind of want that to be right centered, the stamp to be centered. So let's see if I can make that happen here. So finding my way is going to get stamped. One thing too, I always recommend to people is to test stamps out on the photo paper that you're going to be using. So I'm just going to grab, I don't think I have any extra. I'm looking in my garbage to see if I have any extra prints. I don't have any right now. But here's just a piece of photo paper that I use with my Epson, so I can see what's it going to look like. Make sure that it's, yeah, so that's fine. I don't care that it doesn't need to be perfect for me, but just making sure that how sticky it's going to be. Okay, so generally centered. That's where I want it to be. Go ahead. I'm just rocking it back and forth a little bit. Sometimes this Stays On is stickier. There we go. Okay, I'm good with that. And then I'm going to adhere the joy on there again, and I'm just using the Martha Stewart glue pen again, which seems to be working for these. Another thing you can do is staple these on, and sometimes when I go back and I look at my old albums and I can see where maybe some of them have lost their adhesive, that's a possibility as well. And I am also going to just add another one of these little stars from that Jasmine Jones sets. Again, the idea of repetition, right? I've got them kind of different places around in this day's spread. And I'm going to put it, instead of putting it on the J, I'm going to put it just kind of right in the middle of that sentiment there. Okay. So part of the prompt, the prompt was, you know, words front and center. And part of the way that I achieved that was just by going big, right? Using letter stamps that were a little bit bigger that ended up filling up the whole page. I love this look. Again, you can achieve that same look just by making up you know, typing it up and then printing it out with your printer as well. I love how this one turned out. Like this one, it makes me happy. It feels like a good story. I love including a sentiment like this that my kids will read later on that is part of, you know, some of the values that I want to instill in them, as well as just a little bit of the journaling, and then showing them what I do when they're not here. You know, I think that that's a part of my overall story, and that's a part of my December story, as well as my regular everyday life stories as well. I'm going to go ahead and leave this, the number 4 card, just with the little stars going around there. considered doing some other stuff. But I think that this is good, and I'm feeling good about the way that it turned out as well, and I'm excited to move on to the next day. Just a heads up for you, most likely tomorrow I will be putting another photo on the back, and then I have a very specific idea for how I want to use my little group of tags. I know a lot of you guys saw this in the foundation pages that I made 5 tags. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do 5 gratitudes for, you know, how just things I'm grateful for right now, but I have a way that I'm gonna attach them into the album. I'm pretty excited to share that with you guys tomorrow. So thanks again for being here. If you are new, especially thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope you enjoyed, and please feel free to let me know if you've got any questions. Have a great day.